Thank you all for coming, and I'd like to just introduce you to Stephen from Eden Health Foods. It's an absolute pleasure to have him come tonight. And I know, I think I'll leave it for you to share all your passion and all your hard work into all your great products. So.
I've titled this talk Pillars of Health, and when we're talking about health, it's like, I'll use the example of a house. You know, you don't start building a house with the roof or the walls. You start building a house with the foundation. You don't start with the kitchen first. You start by a firm foundation. And these principles are really important because if you break some of these or you don't build on these pillars, then you'll have ill health. And today, unfortunately, we tend to break a lot of them all the time. And I use the analogy of like breaking the law. This is like natural law, like law of gravity. And if I was to get on top of a building and jump head first onto the ground, I'd be breaking that law of gravity. And I might survive, or I might not. I'll probably do some damage. And it just goes to show how we're wonderfully and fearfully made, that we can continue to break these laws and still do relatively okay. So it's only when we start to achieve good health or really focus on health as a goal that we start to see how healthy maybe we weren't in the past. Sometimes we can end up with serious degenerative disease like cancer and things like that, and that's a big wake-up call for some people, and that's the initiative. Sometimes that's a little bit too late, and my mum always said, it's very easy to take care of things, it's very hard to repair something once it's broken. And so I always encourage people to do preventative healthcare or medicine. And then when you do have something that happens in your life, you're able to overcome that a lot quicker rather than wait till, you know, we get, a common call we get is not someone calling us saying, I've got a little bit of a headache, you know, they're past that. They're like, it's like the house is burnt down usually when people call us and they say, I should have been dead 6 months ago, you know, can you help me now? And it's kind of like calling the fire brigade when there's like a little bit of ashes left, the house is already burnt down, and say, can you please help me? It's very difficult to do that, so it's always good to be your own doctor and look at yourself and your own symptoms. You know, like the system is not there for you, unfortunately. You know, and we heard that with the budget yesterday. When don't want to get political here at all, where elderly people, it's going to cost more and more, and so the message was don't get sick. And a lot of people complaining, but I saw that as a real positive. And I guess same with anything in life, you've got to look at things positively, because you need to take care of yourself. You need to take care of yourself, and I hope that's what people get out of that. So the first pillar we're going to look at is nutrition. It's probably the biggest one. We'll probably talk for hours, literally, on different aspects. And I wrote a few points here that I thought were important: organic, raw, and whole food. So organic's really important for a myriad of reasons. You know, they tested different foods like tomatoes, and they found that they were very low in trace minerals like cobalt and copper and things like that. In fact, zero, didn't even register. And so a lot of people think that when you buy $1 a kilo tomatoes, you're getting good value, or $1 loaf of bread, or $1 a litre of milk. And I hope I don't offend anyone when I say this. Where we live up in Port Macquarie, there's an Aldi, and I went in there not to buy food, and I noticed a lot of the people going into Aldi were in a wheelchair or had a walking frame. I even saw gas masks and World War II. It was like, and I thought, Aldi's not to blame for that, but cheap eating is, and a lot of people that go there to save money. They think they're doing really well if they save money, and I mean they're the two factors, I think, when it comes to health, you know. And sometimes a husband and wife will have that battle where maybe the wife may want organic and the husband says, well, everyone actually would probably, if you ask anyone, they'll probably say, yeah, I want to eat organic. But then when you tell them the price, and they say, well, let's eat non-organic, you know, because, but eating healthfully is an investment in your health, and it's a commodity you can't afford to lose. Because like the saying goes, most people spend the first 40 years of their life gaining wealth and losing their health, and the next 40 years losing their health to try to regain their health. And so when you eat non-organic produce, this is an American study that showed they consume about 8 pounds of chemicals a year. So the average person that eats non-organic is about 4 kilos. It's a huge amount. And I use the analogy of, you know, people say, oh, it's not that much, it wouldn't hurt me. Well, just get a little bit of chemicals in your hand, maybe get some Morning Fresh or something, and just put a little bit of it on your finger and eat it. And no one will do that. It's like, what are you, you're crazy, I'd never do that. But you're doing that all the time when you're eating non-organic food. And so this accumulates in the body, and the body tries to get rid of a lot of it, but it can't. It builds up in your body, and you end up with, depending on what you've consumed, degenerative disease. So it's very important. The next point is raw food. And raw food's really big these days. It's come out as a type of culture today, and there's a lot of raw food gurus out there talking about raw food. And I try to put that in perspective, because raw food and juicing is really good if you're trying to overcome degenerative disease. And as a long-term thing, you know, there's many studies to show that high raw food diets means you'll have less degeneration and you'll live very happily. A really good proponent of raw food was Paul Bragg. He lived till he was 95. He was surfing in Hawaii, and he ended up in pneumonia because they gave him some drugs when they went to the hospital, and he ended up dying from that because he'd never taken drugs in his life. And so a lot of people's picture of when people get old is they have to end up with degenerative disease, but it's not always the case. And there's many cultures around the world, which is what you want to look at. You want to look at history rather than fads when it comes to the choices we make. And so there's a lot of long-lived cultures around the world that eat high raw food. They eat some animal products. Thinking of the Hunza people, you know, they live 120, still working in the fields beside their children, their children's children, and they, and I'll actually touch base on that in a little bit, why they include some animal products. But I made a point here of whole foods, and so actually I'll go back to raw foods are really good if you're doing detoxing and trying to get regenerate. You know, there's a lot of enzymes and things like that, but it's not always the best way to go. For instance, if you've got heavy metal toxicity, you know, mercury fillings and things like that, nervous disorders sometimes can be related to that. That's not always the best way to go, because heavy metals are fat soluble, and so going on a juicing diet or eating a lot of raw food isn't going to bind to the heavy metals and get them out. In fact, it's going to do the opposite. And so sometimes you've got to include cholesterol or some sort of fat to bind to the heavy metals, because heavy metals are fat soluble, and use chlorella and different herbs to pull them out of the body, like apple pectin, doing bowel cleansing and things like that. So it's not always as straightforward as it seems. You know, a lot of people say, I'll go on a juicing diet, I'll go on a raw food diet, and that'll solve all my problems. So you just got to tread carefully. But generally speaking, it doesn't hurt anyone to do all our cleansing programs. We do some bowel, liver and kidney cleansing, and all of them require some sort of fasting or juicing of raw food for a period of time. And that's really good, you know. But raw food and juicing is a tearing down phase, and you've also got to build as well. So you can't just tear down constantly, otherwise you will start to lack certain things. When it comes to whole foods, I'll touch on this one. Basically all the diets around the world today consist largely of starches, and the problem with that, or the reason people are having problems with that, so starchy foods, I mean like grains, like rice, legumes and nuts and seeds, you know, like chickpeas and things like that. They have high amounts of what's called phytic acid. Has anyone ever heard of that? Phytic acid, yeah. And different things have lectins and saponins. And what they do is they come under a classification called anti-nutrients, and they block the absorption of nutrients. And so we'll be talking about superfoods later, and some superfood formulas have like rice bran and different. If you go to the health food store, they have wheat bran and things like that. And ancient cultures actually used to get rid of the bran because of the high phytic acid content that blocks the absorption of nutrients. And so if you eat high phytic acid foods all the time, so breads, for instance, that are produced commercially in Woolworths, it's going to have massive amounts of that. Same with rice, same with pasta, same with cereals. Extruded cereals are bad for a myriad of reasons. And so if you're blocking absorption of nutrients over a long period of time, like a lifetime, you'll end up with degeneration. So that's something that's really important. The way, if you haven't heard that before, the way you treat grains is by adding a little bit of acid. And so if you're making rice, you add some apple cider vinegar or some lemon, and it breaks down the phytic acid, and you rinse it off. You kind of sprout it, and that breaks it down that way. Same with grains and oats and things like that. As far as animal products go, again, that's another big topic, and I probably won't have all the time in the world to cover everything I'd like to, but certain nutrients like vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, zinc, B12 are very hard, if almost not impossible, to attain on a vegan diet. And we promote veganism or promote vegan diet because most of our patients or clients or customers have been eating too many animal products for too long, and you've got to kind of steer them away from that because the animal products they're eating are low grade. So if you're going to eat animal products, you've always got to eat organic. And if you're not, then you're not getting. A lot of studies show that non-organic eggs or milk and things like that have very little vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, and so forth. So you're not getting the nutrients that you should get, but you are getting a whole lot of toxins because animal products are full of toxins. You know, herbicides, pesticides, hormones, GMO. You know, a lot of people have chickens at home and they buy the grain and they think they're giving the chickens, they're organic eggs. But they're only organic eggs if you feed them organic grain, because the grain is usually GMO, corn and things like that. So it might be healthier because they're free range, but you just got to have a look at what you're feeding them. And so up the front we were talking a little bit about milk, and milk came up, and milk products, and the general milk products that you can purchase today, even from the health food store, is poor quality because they're all pasteurized and homogenized, which is really bad. And what that does, it destroys a lot of the nutrients. It destroys what's called phosphatase in the milk, which helps you to absorb a lot of your vitamins and minerals and calcium. And so a lot of people have non-organic, homogenized, pasteurized milk, and they think they're drinking it for good bones, but what happens is they end up with free calcium excess going around their body, and they end up with calcium on the outside of the bones. They end up with bone spurs and arthritis and osteoporosis. But ancient cultures always had and drank raw milk or raw goat's milk and fermented that using cultures to make yogurt and things like that, and that's actually really healthy. In fact, there's many cultures that showed that they had. Has anyone heard of Weston A. Price? He wrote a book called Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. Masterpiece. He did 10 years of traveling around the world studying indigenous cultures, and found that those cultures that consumed good quality, in fact most cultures around the world, or long-lived cultures, went to great lengths to make sure that they had good quality vitamin A, vitamin D, fat-soluble vitamins and minerals. And he found that they had exceptional health and had, in most cases, 0 dental cavities, which is unheard of today in the Western world because we're eating all these de-nourishing foods. We're eating a lot of foods with phytic acid, which is blocking absorption of nutrients. And what also he found was that raw or good quality animal products had what's called vitamin K2. He called it X factor. And vitamin K2 helps with the absorption of all your other plant-based nutrients. And he found that the absorption rate was about 25%. So you absorbed about a quarter of your food if you didn't have good quality vitamin K2. And so imagine just absorbing 20, so you could be buying organic food and doing all the best things in the world, but you could only be absorbing a quarter of it. And so that's why doing a raw food and juicing diet is really good for a period of time, but if you do it for years and years and years, there's actually no known culture anywhere on the globe that ever has successfully, for generations, been 100% vegan. And so the vegan diet is very popular today, but because people get immediate results. And so people cut out poor quality animal products, and they free up their body. You know, they go on a raw food juicing diet, and you know, they free up their pineal gland, and their body starts cleansing. They have a lot of energy because they're getting a lot of easy to absorb nutrients. But what they're really relying on is the built up stores of a lot of those vitamins and minerals that they may have got before to absorb. And if they keep going on that diet, eventually they'll start to become depleted. We'll move to the next one. Exercise. So these pillars, you're only as strong as your weakest link. And so, you know, we've written 8 things down, and I often tell our patients, you know, if I tell you to do 10 things and you do 9 of them, well, I can't guarantee anything. And especially when you're suffering with degenerative disease or ill health, this forms the basis. And see, because everyone's got the same mindset that the system has given us, which is go see the doctor, he'll give you a pill and everything will be okay. And it kind of even naturopaths work the same way, where they give you a herbal capsule, everything will be okay, don't have to change your lifestyle, you'll be alright. And it kind of doesn't work that way. And so herbs are good, and organic herbs are even better, and you know, like healthy programs are excellent, but unless you're following the pillars of health, I find herbs don't even work a lot of the time. And so, you know, if you're staying up late, thinking bad thoughts, not drinking any water, doesn't matter what you do, it's not going to work. And so a lot of people are just throwing their money away by, say, eating organic food, but then they're doing some other thing wrong. And so exercise is a really important one. Unfortunately today people think that shopping is exercise. I get that a lot, and it's not. And so we need to have vigorous exercise every day, because ancient people worked. Okay, so even 100 years ago, 95% of people lived in the country. Today it's the other way. I think it's 98% live in the cities. Very few people live in the country, and just living in the country automatically creates more work, because you've got more land. And so even if you're not doing anything, you're actually working more. So if you're in the city, you need to, that's why gyms have exploded and people are going there, that's really great. But you know, people often ask, what's the best form of exercise, or what should I do? The best form of exercise is actually something that you'll do every day. So something that you like, which means you're going to do it. Don't try and take up things you're not going to like, because you'll probably never do it. And so, like we've written down here, vigorous exercise, sweating for 1 hour every day. So that gets your blood and your lymph, your whole system moving, your bowels moving, everything's going to start moving better once you get blood moving. And see, when you take herbs or eating good food, you've got to get those herbs to the area that's sick or dying or not well in order to have a healing. And unless your blood is moving and getting to that area, it's not going to happen that way. It's not going to work. A lot of people think it's just like having a surgery or having, see, drugs are very powerful. People take drugs and they expect herbs to work the same way, and it just doesn't work that way. Natural healing takes effort. And a lot of these points are just part of a healthy lifestyle. And so a lot of people say, they kind of equate health as a destination, as if I could only do that detox, if I only did the Incurables program for 1 month, then I'll be well, and then I can do whatever. And healthy living is a path. It's kind of like the Bible, where it says there's 2 paths you can go on, and that's what health is about. It's about choosing, making healthy choices all the time, making the healthiest choices you can, whether it's mind, body and spirit, all the time. And it just becomes habit. Instead of making unhealthy choices, you continually make the healthiest choices, and then the reward for that is health, or the absence of disease. The next point is water. Water's, again, a very important point. Unfortunately, the water we have given to us by the government here is really poor quality. You don't want to be drinking that. It's full of, who knows what it's full of actually, but we do know it's full of fluoride and chlorine. And you want to somehow get pure water. So I'm not here selling any sort of methods of getting that pure water. You have to do your own research. You know, there's distillation, there's filtration. Usually the best is actually getting out to the mountains and getting some spring water somewhere and bringing it back, because it's been naturally filtered by the earth. It's going to be loaded with negative ions and so forth. Water is something we can use several different ways. I've written down one here, which is hydrotherapy, internally and externally. And hydrotherapy just means hydro water therapy. And when we're working with sick people, or when we want to heal a specific area, we use water, hot and cold hydrotherapy, and it moves blood, gets a lot of blood to the area. So by putting, a simple way is just having a shower, hot shower, and putting it full cold. And so when you're hot, what happens? Your face goes red, there's blood coming to the surface, and when you have a cold shower for a minute or so, it forces the blood back in. And if you do that back and forth, it creates a whole lot of circulation. Probably like nothing else I know. Hydrotherapy works really well at getting water to a injured or sick place in your body, or your whole body. In fact, try it. If you try it first thing in the morning, you'll feel like you've just exercised. The next point is, and if you notice these words make up a sentence, there's new start. So I've written them down in that order because it makes that word new start. So we'll go to the next word, which is start, and that starts with S, sunshine. So we need to expose our body to the sun every day. Unfortunately, in the Western world, everyone's in office buildings, they're not getting out in the sun. And you know, I talk to a few doctors that are friends of mine. You know, I don't try not to talk to too many doctors, but I have got a few friends that are really nice, and they're telling me that vitamin D, people are lacking vitamin D like crazy. They say it's an epidemic, in fact. And you'd wonder why when they're eating all these animal products which are supposed to have vitamin D. And so we need to get good quality vitamin D, not only from good quality food sources, but getting in the sun every day is very important for healing. You know, with our Incurables program, part of that program is we get people to lie out in the sun every day for like 15 minutes, front and back. It's very healing. It's amazing. So sunshine is really important. All life forms on the planet require sunshine for life, but the system is telling us, except for humans, stay out of the sun, don't get any sun, and they're scaring people into staying away from the sun and putting on toxic creams to prevent any vitamin D getting absorbed at all. This is crazy, and if people cleaned up their act and had a really clean diet and a clean body, they wouldn't be getting a lot of the skin cancers, which is actually just an internal problem manifesting itself on the outside. You don't get that when you don't eat vegetables. I will touch on that. That's a really big one, and very popular even in the health food industry. Vegetables are really toxic. You want to stay away from them. So when I talk about vegetables, I'm talking about canola, sunflower oil, you know, rice bran oil, all those oils. The only oils we should use are olive oil, really, and coconut oil. If you're doing cooking, it's really good because it's really stable. Olive oil still has to be kept in a dark glass. All the other oils are really unstable, and they cause a lot of damage. In fact, they've tried to press plant-based oils, vegetable oils, and test them straight away to see if there's any rancidity, and they can't test it quick enough. It's already gone off, it's already rancid. And so they're really unstable, they go off, and they cause a whole lot of damage in our bodies, a whole lot of free radical damage, massive amounts. And so we've worked with a lot of people that was their problem. They were really into health, and after talking to them, I finally worked out that that's what they were doing. You know, they were consuming. Once they changed, they felt a lot better. Next one is temperance, and that's an old English word which simply means self-control in all good things. So, for instance, work is good, but unfortunately people today overwork, and so exercise is really good, but most people don't get any at all. And so it just means, so the good things you want to focus on that, and the bad things you want to limit or cut out. You know, you want to have temperance or self-control. Unfortunately, people are lacking self-control. The next one is air. and the air we breathe is in the city, probably not the best. So you need to get out into the ocean or get out to parks as often as you can, or get into the national park on the weekends, or move out of the city. Probably a good idea. You get lots of fresh air where there's lots of trees. But really important. In fact, the number one nutritional requirement of our body, 98% of our requirement is air. And we just don't get that. And so if you're not going to get, you know, the oldest living person, does anyone know who the oldest living person currently is on the planet? Is a man in South America, in Bolivia, and he's 123 years old. And they asked him what he ate, and he said, I eat chuño, which is a potato, like mashed potato thing, and lamb. And I thought that was really interesting. But he's up in the mountains, and he probably has a stress-free lifestyle. But I thought, wow. And he says he's never had any health problems, ever, and he's still enjoying really good health. With some, I wouldn't even be his grandchildren, but great-grandchildren now. So fresh air is really, good quality air is really important. On our Incurables program, we often get people to do deep breathing exercises where they inhale as much as they can and exhale, inhale, kind of like doing exercise, really, because you can kill two birds with one stone by exercising, because you'll start to automatically deep breathe. And yeah, so that deep breathing exercise, if they're really ill and they can't do a lot, if they've got heart problems and things like that, we need to take it easy a bit. But we need to get as much oxygen in as possible, and you want to do that until you feel a little bit dizzy. It gets a lot of oxygen into your body. It's really important. The last point is, second last point is rest. And so we need to go to sleep early and rest one day of the week. So this is a really important point again. And it kind of ties in with the work or temperance. And today people are overworked, and because of city lights, you know, I've got some young children, and the youngest ones are sometimes asleep by 7. And I look at that, and I've got chickens as well. And you know, like before the sun's even gone down, they're already going to sleep. And so we have what's called a circadian rhythm, and we're on a biological clock. And they say that shift workers can shorten their lifespan by up to 10 years by not going to sleep at the right time. And if they're a smoker as well, I think it's another 8 years or something like that. And so what we're looking for is REM, or rapid eye movement sleep. And they say that you need 2 of these REM cycles, which go for about an hour and a half every day, to rejuvenate. And they only happen before midnight. And so you need to be asleep at 9. Yeah, 9 to 12 is when you get that deep sleep. Because if you go to sleep at midnight, I don't know if you've ever noticed that, it doesn't matter how much sleep you get, you're never actually rested. You actually feel tired until maybe the next night, or whenever that chance you get to go to sleep early to feel really rested. But if you do ever have the chance to, hopefully that's every day, to go to sleep early, you can get up really early as well. And you probably don't have as much sleep, but the quality is there. And so, you know, so I'm thinking of a great female writer of 100 years ago. She wrote volumes. She was the most written female author of all time. She used to go to sleep at 7 and get up at 1. And she used to do all her writing at that time. She wrote volumes, and so she was really, really awake and really alert before the chores of the day. And I know, you know, the lifestyle we live in is hard for that, but I often encourage people to, at least, if they're suffering serious degenerative disease, we get people to follow the program. Or, you know, it's not up to me, it's up to you really. So we advise people, we strongly advise people to totally follow everything that we ask them to do. But if you can go to sleep at 10, therefore you get one of those REM cycles in, you're going to be getting something, you know. So if you sleep by 10:30, it's optimal. If you're going to sleep at 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock every night, you're setting yourself up for degeneration as time goes on, if you continually do that all the time. Last one is trust in God, and again, a really important one. Have faith in Him and build a relationship. And so I'm not here to preach or anything like that, but I do know that from working with sick people that probably 99% of the people we work with, it all comes back to emotional problems and stress or anger, or they haven't forgiven someone, and so we need to let go. a lot of times. In fact, before I came here, I was a little bit late because every time I come to Sydney, I'm at my mum's, and everyone in the area are kind of saying hello to everyone. There's an older man across the road, an older Croatian man, he's about 80, he had a stroke. So I couldn't kind of just get away. I started talking to him, and he's always telling me about the negative things, you know, about the budget that just happened, and how he's worked. He came to Australia and never got 1 cent and went to work straight away, worked till he was 74, and he can't believe how people are being asked to now work till they're 70, which he worked on the building site, so physical labour, imagine, you know, people, but when I was listening to him, and it's the same story every time I talk to him, I kind of feel for him, and I always try to encourage him and try to focus on the positive things. But that can tear you down if you're always looking at the negative. And I was thinking about that on the way here. Well, I was just thinking about him, and I thought, you know, you get a lot of this negativity from what we do or what we look at, and the Bible says be careful what you look at and what you listen to and what you do. And so, because it all comes in, and we don't have a TV at home, and often Foxtel come knocking at the door, and you know, they want to sell things, and we say we haven't got a TV, and they're shocked. They're like, what? You haven't got a TV? How are you going to know about stuff? How are you supposed to, like, you don't watch the news? And personally, I think the news is it's just the system telling you one thing when really, you know, they never really tell you the truth. But the news is just a concentrated ball of negativity, and if you watch that every day, in fact, part of our program, a lot of sick people come in, we tell them to stop watching TV, and they say, well, I've got to watch the news. And I tell them, well, especially don't watch the news. That's one thing you don't want to watch, because if you don't view those things, where we live, we're looking at birds singing, you know, creek, flowing river, and trees and wildlife. It's very relaxing getting in nature rather than focusing on all the man-made problems that have been created and man's weak solutions at trying to fix them, and man's hope that somehow, like my neighbour, that some politician will come along or something will happen. It'll never happen. So, you know, like Jesus is the great problem solver. We pray and give everything to him, and then we leave it with him in his hands and ask him to take control of our lives. And people have a lot of peace by doing that, because if you're suffering from degenerative disease or have cancer, things like that, people can be very tense and upset at, you know, they've got the disease, upset at their husband or wife that they got divorced and they caused it, upset at the doctors for removing organs and body parts and all the chemo and radiation and all those things. And you know, unfortunately, those things happen and they're not good. But you've got to come to a point in your life where you've got to start taking responsibility for your health, stop blaming others, because the only life that you can really change is your own. And so by changing your own and thinking positively and doing positive things, you'll influence others to have good health, and hopefully you'll have good health too. It's very important. The mind is so, I can't underestimate the positive thinking and the power of the mind in healing. I'll just give one example actually. There was an elderly lady that she had cancer, and she actually didn't do any natural healing. She didn't do anything. She just said, I'm not going to die. I'm going to get well. And she ate ice cream and all sorts of stuff. She didn't even, and she actually got well just by thinking to be well. And so the power of the mind is very important. So yeah, thanks everyone.